Hey everyone, welcome to the Postcast.
Hi.
Hi.
So we didn't keep recording right after the podcast today because we were all hungry. So you missed out on some great comments and conversation.
Crunching.
Lots of crunching, some Instagram talk. But yeah, so welcome to the podcast, and here we are. Dun, dun, dun. My Christmas tree is still here.
Oh, that's funny.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
I know. It's going to be really weird this year being in Florida. I was talking to my in-laws about it. You know, I'm already feeling kind of strange about it not truly being like turny fall kind of thing. And so I can't even imagine. Then what's weirder further to think about is how your reality is a reality. And there are some people who grow up and did not ever have snow at Christmas. And then it makes me think about movies like Home Alone, other movies where Christmas is just depicted in this Currier and Ives sort of a way. And you wonder, what is it like to watch those movies and stuff if you say grew up in Arizona? Like, what is that like for you to be like, is that totally a fantasy in your mind? Do people believe that that is really true about Michigan or the Midwest and wintertime? Do you know what I mean? Just kind of neat to think about.
Or like if you're raised in California and you never have any snow, like say you're in Southern California and then you watch Hallmark movies and they always are depicted as being in a small town, snowy area at Christmas. Like, is that how you imagine Christmas even though you don't experience Christmas that way? You know, like for me, like growing up in Michigan, we usually have snowy Christmases. But if I were to imagine Christmas right now, it still has a little bit of Bing Crosby-ness to it. And we never had Bing Crosby-ish Christmases. There was no singing and dancing at my house. There's, you know,
I'm surprised.
I know. There probably should be. This year. This is the year. So, anyhow.
Well, I grew up in Alaska, so it goes without saying there was always snow by Halloween. We went trick-or-treating in our snowsuits. We wore Halloween costumes that were big enough to fit over our snowsuits and our snow boots and our
Yeah. Well,
and we went to midnight mass on Christmas night, and Santa Claus always came while we were gone to mass.
Oh, Santa Claus is smart.
Wow.
And
Either really good or really bad timing.
And we got to stay up and open our presents and play with them all night, and my parents went to bed. They were geniuses, I just have to say. Geniuses.
Yeah, I had a friend who, we always had Christmas Eve at my grandpa's house, and Santa had always come to his house and would be there when they got home after Christmas Eve, because they lived an hour away, right? So there's a lot of travel time. And they were also Catholic, so I think they may have even hit the Mass. So anyway, he had the same experience, and I used to be so jealous that he got his present so much earlier.
And I'm sure that your parents were jealous of his parents as well, because they got to sleep in on Christmas morning.
I don't know. My dad's always kind of been an early bird. And in fact, I think they got more excited about the toys than we did. My mom was famous for having to test the toys out, right? Let's open them up and put the batteries in it so that we can test them to make sure that they work and stuff. Well, we know she really enjoyed playing with the toys, right? She's totally a kid at heart. Yeah, it was really funny. My mom, it's funny, she rolls her eyes at us, but we tease her because she would always say, now, if you don't like it, I can take it back. And so for a while, it was like a joke at Christmas. We would say to each other, now, if you don't like it, Mom can take it back. Because she would say it almost every time when we were going to open something that she was not sure made the excellence list. All right, I'm doing the randomizer, which I went first last time, so hopefully I don't have to go first this time.
You went first last time because we made you, not because
I
the randomizer put you
know.
there.
Well, let's see what happens. Jen, Rhonda, Tina, Jamie. Will you look at that? The randomizer loves me, although I really don't have to go last. But anyway, that's funny. So it went Jen, Rhonda, Tina, Jamie. Tina, do you want to go first?
I don't care. Just out of curiosity, what order do you put the names in before it randomizes it? Do you always put your name in the same order?
No, I put Tina, Rhonda, Jamie, Jen when I typed them in. Usually I'm like having a major brain fart and can't remember at least one of your names or maybe my own. And so I put them in the order that I remember them.
Maybe my own.
I'll look and I'll say, I only have 3 names. What am I missing? Oh, my name
Well,
is not on there.
if you're
or
anything
whatever.
like me when I'm going down the list of my children's names, trying to remember who they are, you get the dog and the cat in there too.
Yes. I have a Najina and a Janicki.
Yes, so Scrappy is first, followed by Mocha, and no, just kidding. Those are my dogs' names. Okay, but so really, I can go first. I just do the randomizer because, well, I'll randomize it again. What does it do this time? Oh, it put me first.
There you go. What's the order now?
It went Jamie, Rhonda, Jen, Tina, but Tina hates being last.
I don't care. That's
All
okay.
right, so I'll go first. My piece is really short anyway. So all I really want, this was obviously just like I just want to hear what you think about it because I feel like I accomplished a certain thing with it, and I want to hear if that's what comes out in the feedback.
Okay.
But I don't want to tell you what it is. And I will go into isolation.
Be gone.
All right.
Okay,
who
who's
wants
going to
to
go
go first?
first?
Go ahead.
I loved this piece. It had lots of delicious detail.
Lots of delicious what?
Details.
Oh, nice play on words.
Yeah. I wrote that down so I'd remember to say.
That's great.
Yeah, I first I wasn't sure, like, because Jamie sometimes writes science fiction, so I didn't know, like, was it a spaceship? What was it? But then when it became clear it was the refrigerator, I was like, oh. And the preparation H in the refrigerator, that just got me. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, do people actually do that? Do people
I don't know.
actually
I had that
keep
question too, but it made me
the
feel like
preparation H in the fridge?
I mean, you got to be seriously in pain if it's got to be in the fridge.
I suppose if it was cold, it would be soothing.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
gonna guess that they do, and I'm gonna guess that this kind of did happen to Jamie, and that's why she wrote this. And if it really was her sister's house, her sister is gonna kill her when she finds out. Not only did she write about this, but she published it, at least on Postcast. So
Yes,
that's my
I
guess.
agree with what you
Yeah.
said. Mhm. Right.
So-
So I was wondering about it in the refrigerator too, but then I thought, well, this person is very meticulous and, I mean, don't mind my saying, but, so I'm wondering if she keeps it in the fridge because it's a beauty product and she doesn't want to, she needs her bags gone before she sees the public. So maybe the cold helps with that.
I
So I
never
was
thought
thinking,
of that.
well,
I
so
don't
that was
know.
my thought about the preparation age.
All right, I don't know because I feel like this piece is really more about the narrator. It really doesn't. I mean, it's telling us a little bit about the person that owns a refrigerator, but
Right.
really we're supposed to
Yeah.
be learning more about the narrator.
Oh, I agree.
Um,
But she was also, this refrigerator is kind of telling us about whoever owns it
yeah,
too,
yeah.
and maybe her view of this person,
Mhm.
maybe. But I love her name of the beer though, Snoot Loot, because some of that IPA, I don't drink, but some of that IPA is really brazy.
I did not
For
know
snooty
that it
people.
was beer. I had to read it twice and like what?
Oh.
And so I guessed that the made up name was beer because it didn't sound like a beer name to me. But I don't drink either, so that could be part of the problem. But yeah, I did not love this piece. I love the way that Jamie writes, and I love when she gives detail. But she lost me after the eggs. The eggs made sense. Like I was with the story up to that point, and then the sister moving the eggs around so they weren't so uniform, like told me a lot about the narrator, and I love that. And then after that, I felt like it was just details. It was just like I kind of feel like it was just the narrator was just thinking, and I didn't feel like there was enough relevance of why we were hearing these different things to keep me in the story. I do think that there is relevance there if the author were to go back in, like put me inside the narrator's head a little bit more. Like, why is it important? Like the butter thing. So it's empty. Okay. Oh, it's got that preparation H. Okay. But then she just talks about how they're like half used on her countertop. So like I get where she's going with this, but I think I just need more. Like if this hadn't been Jamie's piece, I would not have continued reading it. because it
Mhm.
it didn't have enough relevance to me. It was just a bunch of it felt like a bunch of details,
Mhm.
and I think that it could be tightened up some more in order to make me care enough about
Mhm.
the details to keep me reading. But
Mhm.
um, and I felt like the shattering moment was weak. The sharing moment was her the beer. Her asking her sister, "Do you want me to bring the whole pack?" And the sister's like, "I'm only going to drink two." And then she goes ahead and grabs the whole pack, which means she's going to drink the rest of them. Is
Mhm.
how I read that.
Or she knows her sister better than her sister does.
True, it could be that.
So I'm curious
Right.
about that.
I think but
Mhm.
if we had a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit more internal dialogue that would give us a little bit more insight into her relationship with the sister, then the
Mhm.
fact that she grabbed the whole thing might be like a little bit more like a shattering moment, like oh, like like maybe like allude to alcoholism in the family or allude
Mhm.
to having I don't know, whatever she wanted with the story, but I just I
Mhm.
didn't I didn't love it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it.
Right. Well, I liked it. I don't feel like this is really. Maybe a full scene. I guess you could call it a scene, but it doesn't feel like a full story, even if it has a shattering moment and all that sort of stuff. Um, but I thought it was great. You know, especially for Jamie, who doesn't like descriptions
Mhm.
or too much description when she's reading.
Mhm.
I thought this was great
Mhm.
for someone
I
with that
I felt
attitude
like
about
it
it.
was it reminded me of assignments that I've had like
Hmm.
during writing courses where
Hmm.
they say just use a lot of sensory description and
Hmm.
describe a common everyday,
Hmm.
like going into the refrigerator.
Mhm.
And also there was enough of, if it was my house, it wouldn't be this way. This is
Mhm.
how my house would be, to
Hmm.
where I could tell that this person who's going in the fridge is like noticing how neat and clean and tidy this fridge is, and it's totally opposite of
Hmm.
what their own is.
Mhm.
So
Right.
to me, that I just helped me connect with her.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So yeah, I liked this piece too.
I don't think that she's really describing the fridge, to be honest with you. Obviously, she's talking about the fridge, but I think she's describing the person who owns the fridge
Well,
Mhm.
yeah.
and who is so meticulous and specific
I
and
agree.
all
Yeah,
that.
I agree, which is
Mhm.
I guess why I want more because if you're going to go
Right.
into that detail and describe the fridge and I know that you're actually talking about the sister, then I need to look like I need more. Like so
Hmm.
why is this important that I know this about the sister and how is
Hmm.
the shattering moment affect
Hmm.
the whole storyline? So I guess
Right.
that's where I'm at because I like it. I don't love it, but like I do like the whole thing that I thought it was science fiction to begin with too, and then it was a refrigerator, and that made me chuckle, and I like that. I like it when she catches
Yeah.
me off guard like that. But
Yeah. I really like that line where I'm not educated enough on the subject.
yeah,
I don't know. I just really, that kind of brought me in, I think.
hmm
And I would like to know if the writer knows who the other four beers are for
I think it's
also.
for her, or maybe it's for the sister, like you said. Yeah, that's a good
Hmm.
question. Maybe the writer doesn't even know.
Hmm.
All right, anything else?
I didn't take it as a serious piece. You know, you're wondering about alcoholism and all that. I
Right.
just took it as like another day in an average life, just for what it's worth.
I see that, but like to me, then I feel like her writing. There's always a point, though, right? So it's not just
Hmm.
like babble, babble, babble. Like
Right.
what are we supposed to be getting from this piece? And so I guess maybe
Hmm.
for me there just wasn't enough there. For me, obviously not.
Hmm.
I'm only one voice, so anyway,
Yeah,
we
I'm
good?
done.
All right,
Hmm.
Jamie, you're out.
Awesome. Okay, so you said very early in the beginning that this piece is really about the narrator more than the person who owns the refrigerator, and that's what I was really very hoping that I had done with the piece. Um, Also, this was part of the Story a Day in September challenge. So it was a prompt that was given on storyaday.org. Describe the inside of a refrigerator. So I
Mm.
decided to um, do that, but still make it a story that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. So
hmm
it wasn't anything that I really set out to be super earth shatteringly whatever. It is kind of more of like the day in the life. And I was just really hoping that you knew these characters by the end of the piece. That's all I was really going for. And I think that, so I was a hit. 2 out of 3 readers agree that it's a hit. So I started with the rearranging the eggs, mostly because it was like, well, that will really screw with her head or something, a very mild practical joke that a sister could play on another sister. My sister does not, to my knowledge, keep Preparation H in her refrigerator.
So you're safe.
I will go on the record as saying this is not a true story in any way, even though I do have 2 sisters. But my friend from school, I will not say her name, her mother or someone in their home did keep Preparation H in their refrigerator. And that has sort of been something that has been on my mind, kind of rolling around. To open a refrigerator and to see butt cream was just really unsettling for me.
Yeah.
And so when I started to write the piece and I put the butt cream in there, it was just because it was one of those writing nuggets stuck in my head that I knew I wanted to put into something. So I didn't quite yet have it figured out that the sister was quote unquote anal at the time that I wrote that part. So because on reflection, I may have taken it out, but I'm glad that it ended up staying because I kind of like forgot that I did that. This was just a 500 word. I'm going to get my 500 words in and write a story today, kind of a piece. And I was really happy when I was finished with it because I really did feel like it told the story of the narrator, even though the narrator was presumably telling a story about her sister. So that was exactly the feedback I was looking for. Thank you very much. I don't know. Oh, so Snoot Loot IPA. If you're not a drinker, you would not know. But that's for Indie Pale Ale, which in the common vernacular, people would probably know what that is.
Right.
I think I would probably leave it and let people have to go look it up, I guess.
I agree. I think that's probably just my ignorance that stopped that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the general public. I think you're fine.
Okay, awesome.
Now, I will say, Jamie, if this were a story that you were developing, like, and I had it in my hand and could see that there was more coming, there's enough of your character to make me want to keep reading. But if this is a standalone story, then my opinion is different. You know what I'm saying? Because of feeling like invested in it. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that just isn't enough. But
sure. Awesome. So I think that was all very legitimate and awesome feedback as usual, you guys. Very helpful. Thanks a million.
So who's drinking the last 4 beers?
The narrator, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
Like you're only having 2. Well, that's more for me. So hooray. Even though I'm sure she would prefer Coors Light or Milwaukee's Beast or something like that. She will choke down the Snoot Loot because she knows it's expensive. And so, so that's that.
Hey, before we go any farther, Jamie, you're frozen. So let's, since it's just a postcast, we can be relaxed.
Oh, she's not frozen for me.
Oh,
hold on. I'll turn my camera on and off and see what happens.
That's what I was going to say.
Do. Am I waving?
Yep, there you are.
All
so
right.
much better.
Awesome.
So Rhonda's suggestion that maybe that person was using it for their eye bags instead of their butt.
Yeah, it's less gross.
Makes more sense for the putting the Preparation H in the refrigerator. That makes
it sure does.
to me.
I was in the same place
so-
that Jamie was when I was reading this. I was like, ew, because like that's, oh yeah. So I never thought about it being for your eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, all my years in pageants, that's the first thing I learned.
Wow.
I'm totally lying to you. I've never been in a pageant of any sort.
Well, I thought maybe Nicole might have done that stuff for dance or.
Oh, she did do Miss Davison one year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. So I'm really glad that you guys were able to find an excuse for my uptight sister to have something weird like that in her fridge. But, I mean, stuff sticks with you sometimes and you're like, someday that's going to make its way into something that I wrote. And that was one thing. Maybe it'll stick with all of you now.
Yeah.
Nothing like actually opening a refrigerator and finding that though.
Because like, why wouldn't this sister that has everything so super organized, why wouldn't she put it in like a sealable, like Rubbermaid little thing so that no one sees it, but she knows it's there? But I guess that she
Nobody's
doesn't
got it
think
all
it,
together.
or maybe she doesn't think anyone else is gonna be in her refrigerator. So.
Right.
Well, that could be
right.
another thing, is that she thinks she's got it all together, but then she's got these little details of her life that she's not hiding, that she should be hiding.
Ah,
Well, and as I think about it more, you know, the occasion for the sister to be pawing around in the refrigerator would have to be pretty dire. So she's obviously collapsed on the couch in heartbreak or something for the
yeah.
sister to be the one to be fetched for the beer, because you would not let somebody into your sanctum like that. You'd be like, you stay here. Let me put some garbage bag under your feet so that your nasty shoes don't get stuffed. You know what I mean? Like, so for the sister to be sent for the beer, there has to be something
And
quasi tragic happening.
yeah, and with one simple statement, you could even put that in the story, like something like, if it weren't for under these circumstances, she wouldn't even allow me in here. Just that one statement would like show us so much about both the ladies. So yeah.
In the story,
Yeah,
too.
yeah, and then she'll know that it was a mistake when she sees what she's done to her eggs.
Yes.
My ex-mother-in-law, she used to have these little blocks, like primitive decorating blocks that spelled out whatever. And every time I left, I had to turn at least one of them. Had to.
My aunt has my grandmother's blue willow china, and she has it in yeah, it's gonna be mine someday. I'm so excited. But in a antique Hoosier cabinet, she has all of them in there behind glass, and she has all the teacups and everything. The design is all lined up, and everything is like, because she has them stacked and stuff. And so I would go to their house, and if they weren't home, I have a key, so I would go in and I'd move one teacup. And within 24 hours, I'd get a phone call. Were you at our house? Like, how in the world do you notice that? Like, it's crazy.
Rhonda, tell me more about these blocks. Did they each have a letter? Were they like 26 of them? Like, I'm not familiar.
It seems like it's like one side spelled out Merry Christmas and one side spelled out some other holiday, Great Thanksgiving or something like that.
Right.
And so I would just turn one or two of them because they were very specific. It's almost like she got a ruler out to make them perfect. And so I would just like push one a little bit or flip the T upside down or whatever. And it was always fun for me.
That's funny.
What is that about people that like to push other people's buttons? I mean, we're all kind of guilty of it, but
Just trying to
unfortunately,
help her stretch. Just
I
trying to help her
guess
grow.
my
I don't know who would
middle
ever
child.
do that. Like, put up a tree just to get under someone else's skin. I don't even know
I-
what that's like.
Teaching them grace. You're teaching them grace.
That's
I told
right.
my middle child, I said, you're going to have to come up with a new hobby because she seems to really enjoy getting her little brother upset. And I said, I know you're just having a good time, but you need to have a different pastime, young lady.
Mhm.
So of course my mother-in-law says that means she needs to be cleaning something every time that she does that. I'm like,
Oh.
that's pretty smart.
I think
It's
it's
right
just
out
a
of my
middle.
mom's book.
I think it's just a middle child, little child thing. Like, my girls are that way. Randy was so mean to his little sister, and they're best friends now. So it might just be
Yeah,
rite of
when they're
passage.
getting along, it's fabulous. All of them. When they're getting along, isn't it great?
Yes.
And you're just like, I don't even care what they're doing, you know. They're doing like throwing knives or you know, like they're getting along. Okay, I guess this is the activity.
Think about the great stories they're going to have to tell when they're older.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
All right,
grandchildren come and tell me stories about shooting each other with BB guns because they were playing tag.
Oh my goodness.
They
Wow.
were
That's a serious
latchkey
thing.
kids. I was a working mom, so I'm sure there's more stories out there I've yet to hear.
All right, Jamie, does your
Yikes.
back feel well fed?
Very well, thank you.
All
So
right.
we have to toss Rhonda into the isolation
All right.
chamber. Rhonda,
Okay.
Rhonda. Oh,
What
I
are you
gotta
looking
pull up
for,
the piece.
Rhonda? What kind
All
of
right.
feedback?
So Tina and Jamie have actually read this before. And there were a few changes that I made to it since they read it. Very subtle, but I just want to see how they feel about it now and if they even noticed that changes were made.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
also, you know, basic story, what needs to be improved and all that.
All right.
Okay, you're locked up.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, so the challenge was to retell the story of Hansel and Gretel from the perspective of the witch. That was the assignment that we were given in another writing group that we were in with Rhonda. And so this was her entry. And back then I really liked it. And now I really liked it. It was difficult for me because, as she said, I had already read it once. And so it was really very hard for me to like focus enough to like super hard critique it, because it all felt familiar. And so it puts me in a different headspace. It's why I kind of tell Tina, I probably am not a good choice for someone to read something and then read it again to see if the improvements help, because my brain gets a familiarity and starts to gloss. But I did try my really best to be able to give this a critique. On page 3, I thought Harriet called in mother should be Harriet had called in mother. I mean, that's kind of a nitpicky critique, but it kind of threw me out of the dialogue. And then down at the bottom of page 3, she put comment a couple of times. Like, this is all kind of minor stuff, but this is the only meat that I really had, because I liked the piece before, like I said, and I like it now. I loved that she raised an eyebrow for punctuation, also on the bottom of page 3. That was terrific. And then this time, though, I can say I had a better idea of what she was on about way earlier in the story. I feel like the last time I read this, I'm like, what is going on in this story till about 2/3 of the way through? But I caught on a lot quicker. And again, I don't know if it's because I knew the ending from the beginning, but it seemed to me to make a lot more sense cohesively. I feel personally that she could enter this into any one of those retell a fairy tale story contests or compilations, and it would do very well. So that's my whole thing.
So let me ask a question. So the writing prompt, you all had the same writing prompt. So when you read this the first time, you knew what direction it was supposed to be going in somehow. So you even to the point where you knew the narrator would be the witch, right? So I would come at it from a different perspective. I didn't know that, and I didn't know anything about it. And the title being The Remediator doesn't give you any clue. So I was very confused for a lot of it. No, I'll get to it.
I can't even imagine. Yeah, okay.
You know, so think about that way, because anyone else that reads this won't know that. And I'm not sure that's a bad thing, because when I did figure it out, I was like, oh. But it did slow my reading down a bit, like when she went to the door and put lip gloss on. Because like it read very much to me like it was set in the past. Like it was an old, and they wouldn't have had lip gloss in the time period that it felt like as I was reading it. And then I also was like, how in the world is there a drought and are they all starving if she has all this baked goods and candy? And like, it didn't make any sense to me. I wasn't cluing in. I thought it was a Christmas piece. I don't know. But then when I finally figured it out, I felt stupid at that point. I'm like, oh, of course, this is how this is. So I gotta say that I kind of like love that, because then I thought, well, that's the shattering moment, is when you finally figure out that it is she is the witch in Hansel and Gretel. But that's not the shattering moment. The shattering moment was amazing. Like the fact that the parents are the ones like that orchestrate the kids getting caught is just like, oh, so well done. So like I never would have thought or gone in that direction. And so it made me think, I don't even care about the confusing part, which was probably me anyway. I really, the shattering moment made the whole story. And so that was it.
I always hated the dad in the story of Hansel and Gretel. Always hated him. And she brought me just a little closer to kind of liking him. But I just always felt like, I don't care who this woman is. She's not going to talk a good dad into doing this sort of a thing. But it's interesting how your perspective on life changes as you grow, and how you start to learn the sort of influence that a woman can have over a man. And I still don't like that sort of a spineless kind of a guy. But she did a really good job of making him quasi-sympathetic, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I think she did a good job with him, is what I'm saying. Like, you can kind of understand a little better why the dad, because I remember the story of Hansel and Gretel, just like the stepmother made the dad do it. You know, I didn't get this great scene of like showing him being so overborn or whatever.
So in the original Hansel and Gretel, the parents are involved, because that the version I always had growing up, they weren't. So maybe that's
that's because your parents were so sweet and didn't want to torment you.
My husband just showed up in the back there, so sorry, continue.
Anyway, yeah, it's the mom, and they were too hungry and they couldn't afford to feed them all. And the stepmother said, "It's these brats of yours that are eating up all our food." And so he takes them into the forest and leaves them there, which is some bread. Bye. It's terrible. Lots of
Yeah.
those Grimm's fairy tales, which I
Yeah.
think is that why we say something is grim when it's
Maybe.
bad? Because
Probably.
that stuff was all dark, man.
They kind of, when they started making them into children's movies and stuff, they kind of made them a little brighter and happier. All of those fairy tales are pretty dark as originally written. But I have forgotten. I mean, I didn't realize that this was the story that I'd already read before. Like, probably doesn't say much about my memory. But until she was putting candy on the front step or the stoop or something. And I went, oh. But I still didn't remember the story. Sorry, Rhonda. Oh, you're not allowed to talk. Sorry, I shouldn't talk to you. Anyway, I wrote on the back, wonderfully terrible.
Oh yeah, that's good.
That's how I felt. Like, that's horrible. They're gonna bake the kids, and it was the parents all along, but it was just a wonderful story. Like, it was wonderfully terrible. I just and my only meat was quickly at the end of the last sentence. I felt should have been earlier in the.
Yes, me too. I totally chopped off the word quickly because I think it's a very much stronger sentence without it. So
Either chop it off or move it in front of away.
he tips his hat to me, puts it back on his head, and walks down the lane away from my gingerbread house. Boom! So putting the word quickly on there is really, I mean, like you said, it could be earlier in the sentence, but it's a very solid ending without that word quickly. I totally agree. I did the same thing. I totally crossed it off. All right, so what else, Bambi? Anything else, Jen?
Nope, I'm good. I think it was great, and I agree.
And
She
I
should
also
enter it
liked
somewhere.
her passage of time thing. And just one more thing before we go, this author just nails it all the time with mother sister dynamics. Like, she has these particular kinds of relationships down pat. Like, her stuff that she's going to write that is about people with those kinds of relationships is going to be so widely read because it's so relatable and these people seem very real. And this is how it really is between, a girl and her mother, and then the tension between certain families, mom loves you more than me, or kind of that sort of drama. She always does such a good job of depicting that. So I just wanted to give that as my final piece.
I agree.
That's it for me.
All right, Rhonda, you're out of isolation.
Okay. Thank you for those very kind words, Jamie. That was very nice of you. I didn't have a sister. I wanted one so bad. So I'm living my adulthood with my imaginary sister. So, okay. Thank you for all the comments. You guys are great. I really appreciate it. Jennifer, I am so glad that the comments you made about not realizing it was a fairy tale at first. When we had the prompt, it's not like we just had to take Hansel and Gretel the story and turn it, make the witch the center of the story.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe even not sympathetic. She just had to be the protagonist.
Right.
In the story. So anyway, I was really glad to hear your comments from someone who didn't have any background in what we had done with that. And also, Tina, I'm glad that you didn't remember. That's fine if you don't remember, because honestly, I don't remember all the stories that I've read either. I remember Corny, but he's my favorite. He's amazing. All right. So Jamie, I'm going to need to talk to you more about retailing the Retell a Fairy Tale contest, because I haven't really heard that they did that.
Well, there's more compilations that are always out that kind of a thing. It seems like there are people who really, really like that. Like, there's an audience for that stuff. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk.
Well, because I was thinking after my Pulp Fiction series that I'm going to do, maybe doing an anthology of these.
Ooh.
Because I had so much fun writing this. I would love to write just every fairy tale. Oh, and yeah, Jennifer, you need to get some good bedtime reading. Go get a Grimm's book and read those. Oh,
Mine was clearly the edited version.
You could call your compilation something like Dysfunctionally Ever After.
Oh, I love it. I'm totally writing that down. And also the blurb on the back, all it's going to say is wonderfully terrible.
That
Quote by TV.
Yeah, that's very good.
that is awesome.
Please
Yeah.
quote me.
Yeah, I would totally vote for putting them up as individual shorts and then as a collection. Only
Yeah.
because you could get a little more mileage out of it that way.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it. That's all I.
Yay! All right, who did Randy put next? Tina's last, right? So it must be Jen again. Jennerino.
Okay, so I am super nervous about this piece. Last week I went to submit it, and it's a piece that I had already edited. As you guys know, I have been working on editing this book that I wrote a couple years ago and taking a ton of stuff out and trying to figure out what to put back in. And I got to this chapter and I read it again. I can't tell you how many times I've read it the past few months. And I just thought it just doesn't sound like my voice. I don't like what they're saying. I don't like what's happening. I like, in essence, what the chapter was doing. So I just sat down and rewrote the whole chapter. And then I submitted it to you guys. Like, I listened to it and then I submitted it. So I'm a little nervous about it because I don't like to give things that are unpolished. So I'm not expecting a whole lot of great stuff from this. So what I'm looking for, I guess, is to see if you like this piece better than last week's, because last week was some older writing, and to see if you feel like it's too different from what the rest of the book is, because I don't want to edit so much that it feels like two different books when you go from one chapter to another, that it just feels like a different person's writing it. So
What I need from you is just a refresher. Last week's piece. Oh, that was the Decoration Day piece.
yes.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Okay, so okay. First of all, bread. I believe that the scene does mission accomplished with the scene. I mean, it gets her on the train. It gets Dad on the train. It gets goodbyes and things like that. Totally great. The bread that I have is silly things like editing type stuff. So to hear that this is just kind of a new version and not super edited is kind of not surprising, but there isn't a whole lot of it. Like nothing that I was like, oh, this is riddled with errors or something like that. What does this say? Oh, her stream of anxiety that starts with, but if I miss this train on the first page, I think is awesome, because you can just kind of hear that the character is just kind of babbling nonsense out of her worries about this and worries about that. I thought that was very strong. I feel like that she would say, I don't know what you're talking about, instead of who you're talking about, when Phoebe sees the handsome and the sister. I know that she's trying to be like, well, I don't know who you mean, but I think she would more feign to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I can't even put that into a context in my mind that you would be talking about a boy that I know. Esther pulled her away and into her arms. That again is just kind of like a too many hers. We need someone else's name or something. I don't know. That was just an awkward sentence. Still on the first page. I laughed at Mrs. Albright not seeming very pleased about telling Sarah she could come up north. That made me LOL, because I was like, the mom is trying to be nice, but you can touch it. I'm not so sure about that plan there. So I thought that was very good for character. And also the dad with his harumph and his hat going down over his eyes was also a bit of comedy for me. So the author's doing a really good job of making me care about and know these characters and believe that they're real people. So again, that's just tiny meat. Nothing really supery sticks out. It's just kind of a mission accomplished sort of piece of the book, in my opinion.
Yeah, I kind of had the same. It did what it needs to do. It did it well. It has you looking forward to the train getting to. This is probably a piece of meat. I'm not sure where she's going. Is it Indian River or is it Iron Falls?
Oh,
She says.
Well, the train's got to stop. Because there's no bridge yet. So there's a train depot that she's got to stop at before she gets over them.
Well, see, yeah, I didn't know that, since I'm not from Michigan, so maybe a little more explanation of that, because I was like, wait, I thought she was going to Indian River.
Iron Falls.
It's so funny the kinds of readers that you run into because, like, I think I could read this whole book and not have a clue where she went. I would just know it was Upper Peninsula, Michigan somewhere. And that particular detail, I'd be like, I don't even care if you called it, Jupiter, because it just does. But it's just, I'm not saying Tina's wrong. I'm just saying it's so funny how readers can be so different
Yes,
about what
right.
things trip them up and, stick with them. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, and I thought that the first two lines were a little confusing to me because she mentions Mrs. Albright and Phoebe, and then she says she.
Oh,
But she was looking into her mother's soft green eyes, so it becomes apparent after very short. You know what I'm saying? But I just had this moment of who's she. So that's
Yeah.
probably just trivial.
yeah.
And I loved her melodrama at the very end. I guess I'll just never know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that.
Okay, my turn.
Yeah.
Or do you have anything? All right. I have no meat. Okay. I didn't bother with grammar and that sort of thing because I know that anything that needs to be corrected, she's going to correct. So I just read it just like it was a chapter in a book in my hand. And to answer your question, it didn't trip me up at all. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's not part of the same book or by a different writer. But I will tell the author that I feel like I'm warming up to Phoebe a little bit more than I ever have before because of this. I think seeing with her family, and I love her dad. He's really great. And her mom's nice too, but I really like her dad. And okay, so about 2/3 of the way down on the first page, she shows that she's caring. She doesn't want to. Maybe she doesn't want to care. Maybe she doesn't want to show she cares. I'm not sure yet, but she does. And it's nice to see just that little, what exactly did she say?
Oh,
I guess you should have written like you promised. That's what it was. Because whether she knows it or not, she cares. So good. Okay. And I've just got smiley faces of all my approval points just because I was so happy with the way that things were going. And then I really enjoyed the scene with her dad. And I'm so glad that he went along. Not that I really think that she needed it. And, she probably would have been fine. But she does have a very loving family and a father who cares. And that's very important. And I like my characters to have people in their lives that love them. And then I've got a big smiley face down where he humped over, Phoebe, just Phoebe. You're just being Phoebe.
Yeah, and not to mention he's got to stop talking or he might spill the beans.
Right.
So he's put himself out of commission so he won't talk anymore.
Right.
I just also wanted to say that the prayer really worked in this scene. I know she had some trouble with the prayer in the decoration day, but it was just enough amount. And then it was great that Phoebe reflected on it and everything like that. So I just, in case she was wondering, because we did not like the prayer the last time, or we felt it was too much or whatever.
Yeah. And I would like to say about Indian River, here's a suggestion for the writer. She needs to start a new series after Lansing is over in Indian River because there's a lot of interesting history there and what a great opportunity. So I'll be looking for that in a few months.
A few months.
Yeah.
No pressure.
It's great to have readers who are engaged with what you're doing and have suggestions. I think it's so funny too how we talk about these characters like they're real people to us. It's really the magic of writing, isn't it? And what's funny is we can gossip about them, and is it really simple because they're not real people? So we can say, "Oh, that John" or whatever, and not be like falling into sin or whatever. Right. Okay, so I think we can let her out unless y'all have something else to add.
Nope.
Come to us.
Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate all of that. Okay, so the stream of worry, I'm glad that worked. I guess I forgot to ask about that because that was something I was concerned about because I don't want to say she sat there and worried. I wanted to show that like she's nervous because, she might not even in her head realize that she's nervous. So how, you have to show it, and I agree that I don't know what you're talking about. It works way better. So thank you for that. the Indian River versus Iron Falls. Yeah, that's a problem because they're both I's, and that's one of the things that you're always told, like, don't have characters with the same first initial. It gets confusing. But Indian River is a real place. Iron Falls is not. But I kind
Oh.
of have to keep that name because of the story. So I'll have to figure that out. But I have to have her stop somewhere. It doesn't have to be Iron Falls, but I chose Iron Falls because when we went up to the UP the last time when I was writing this book, we stopped in Iron Falls and I got to take some pictures of the train station and just get some inspiration there. And it's a logical place that she would have stopped before Mackinac, because Mackinac is where they would get on the boat that the train actually rode onto a boat and went across.
So you're talking about Indian River right now.
Indian River is before that. So, because she has to stop because there's a reason. The other person.
So Iron Falls isn't in the UP?
Iron Falls is in the UP.
Okay.
Indian River is where she's staying the night. So I obviously need to go back in and rework that if this is too confusing. So
yeah, careless reader here thought that was her final destination. Like I was just like, when I read it, I thought that was like the name of the city where she was going, because I'm not a careful reader, so I didn't remember a different name from the past.
Okay.
So I would not have realized that this was some kind of a layover or exchange or something.
All right.
I thought that was the destination.
So maybe if I just take the name out and describe her talk about the people instead. Like here's part of the issue is that in order to cut back this mammoth novel, I've taken characters out, which would be the Mr. Reverend and Mrs. Cook, who there would have been a little bit more discussion about them in the original of this, but I felt like it was unneeded. So I clearly need to revisit that. So I'm glad you guys gave me that feedback, because I don't want that to be a stumbling point for people. I want them to understand.
Well, when she goes to Iron Falls, when she goes to Iron Falls, why do you want her to end up there? Is there a historical reason for that town? Can you change it to Marquette or?
Marquette's too big and too well known. This needs to be it's a fictional town, so I can do whatever I want with it.
Oh, okay.
And because it needs to be a small enough town that when the iron mines started pulling out, this would have been one of the first ones they pulled out of. They would have stayed in Marquette because Marquette had a lot of iron. But this one, so you'll see as, what. But so that is important. So that's why they, so I want to.
So is Rhonda suggesting that you change the name?
Well, if you're worried about the two eyes, I was wondering if you could just change it to I don't know, or
I don't know. I think they're different enough names that it doesn't matter that they both start with I.
Yeah, I don't really.
If they had been too similar, I probably would not have noticed that they were two different names.
Yes, I totally though thought that her destination, like our Reverend and Mrs. Cook, where she's done traveling. Like, I really did think that she was done traveling when she got there, and that this Mr. and Mrs. Cook were taking her to the parsonage from that stop.
No, I guess I need to stop there for a minute and explain more, because I say that they are hosting her for the night. So, let me see.
I must have missed that.
Unless I edited that out. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I was nervous about giving this to you guys.
I think you did, because I don't remember it saying that.
Yep. So I need to revisit that.
And I thought it was amazing, but I thought that she was at her destination when she was finished traveling. That's it. So,
and then there's another scene right after this where they meet someone else, and it will give more information as well about that she's stopping, and there's more of the trip. But yeah.
Now, Jamie, you know that she mentioned two towns, right?
No, I'm not a careful reader. You see, I just thought that she was saying, I'm getting on the train, I'm going to my mission, and this is all about the characters. Like, I paid no attention to like where she's stopping and for how long. My brain just went to
I understand
that travel.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that part of your confusion is because she mentioned stopping in Indian River, which is in the northern, the fingertips of the Lower Peninsula. And then she mentions later in a thought about her final destination of Iron Falls, which is in the UP.
But it could also help if I would just kind of talk about somewhere internally that it's a 2-day trip. Like, I don't mention that it's a 2-day trip.
I think all you need to do right here where you cut off, if that happens, just finish the thought. If that happens, I won't make my next train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
that would
if
have cleared it up immediately.
Yes, but then I want to ask, is it important? Does she do something on that stop that like is it super important that you realize that she stopped somewhere along the way? I don't know. I mean, I'm just
What's
saying.
important is that there's someone that continues on
Ah,
that later on.
gotcha.
So she has to do it as a 2-day trip when it could have technically been done in 1 day. It would have been a long trip. So it's a little plot
could have,
point, but
really?
it's enough that I don't want to change the story for that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Oh. So
Well,
who's
I
gonna
like Tina's solution.
meet her in Indian River?
What?
Who's gonna meet her in Indian River?
Reverend and Mrs. Cook.
Oh,
Oh, before then, when they stop for lunch, you'll
Mm.
find. I guess you'll find out next week.
Mm.
I'll tune in then.
Or you could go buy this book right now.
It won't. No, not yet. Not yet.
Not
In
yet?
the future,
This
I will
one's
do
out.
that.
Well, the readers can. I mean, the listeners can. But
Future
Rhonda
Rhonda,
can't, 'cause
go
we're
buy
still
the book.
stuck in the past.
Awesome. Well, Jen, good
Right.
work. Is
All
your
right.
back fed?
Yes, and thank you about the prayer. That was the other thing I meant to ask about and forgot. So I appreciate that. So yes, my back is well fed. Thank you, ladies.
Super. All right, Tina,
My turn.
what do you want from me?
Well, I think I put it at the top of the page.
Yep.
Just looking for plotting, character development, that kind of stuff. I know that there's editing for grammar and stuff that I need to do. I didn't want to stop to do it because I was on a roll, and I've noticed that when I stop and go back and try to edit, it just puts a screeching halt on my writing. So I'm gonna have
All
to.
right.
So that's that.
So we will banish you to the isolation chamber. The first thing I would like to say is immediately after the postcast, I am going to, well, first of all, no, the first thing I'm going to say is that this is very good, the kind of writing that I've come to expect from this author. And I like that she did not edit herself because I think in her stream of consciousness, she did an excellent job. Now I'm going to give my biggest piece of meat. I'm going to teach this author the minute we are done here how to do paragraph indents on Google Drive. Because
Yes.
this was so excruciating to get through because my brain could not track along with where I was and I kept losing my place. So it's insignificant really because it's a matter of select all and drag in a doodad, which I will teach her. But in the future, that is very hard for someone to read this much prose without indents. So that is my like biggest piece of meat. I love how she writes, and so I feel like when she gets out of her own way and stops worrying about is this what so and so says a piece should contain and blah blah blah, that it is authentically Tina and good. The visions are freaking me out. So unless she's been eating some crazy mushrooms that she found, I hope that somewhere earlier in the book we understand that this is her gift, because we have talked about in the postcast that this main character has a gift of dreaming, and now it seems like her dreams are bleeding over into the reality of the world. And so like, how do we know that our main character isn't kind of losing her marbles or drank some bad water or something like that? So I'm a little concerned about the main character having these visions of demons. It's a little scary, but they're depicted well, and I understood what was going on. And it was very action filled with the chopping the bridge down and all that kind of stuff. And I think that Angelica really didn't want to chop the bridge down, which I liked. She didn't really want to like do something mean or bad, but felt that she had to. And so it's good to see her committed to her quest finally. That's it from me.
Jen, you want to go or you want me to?
You go ahead.
Okay. Obviously, because of what she said, I didn't worry about grammar or anything like that. But for stream of conscious, I am really jealous that she can do this because I was totally sucked in. There was not one thing that took me out of it because of bad writing or not editing or rough draft or whatever. So I can see where she is in the hero's journey plot point outlining area because of everything. So in the very beginning, she had me in suspense. I was definitely in suspense. And then I was relieved for just a little second, like 2 sentences. And then I was right back in suspense again. So I kind of like how I had that little relief because I cannot stand suspense. I got to put a book down and take a breath for a minute if it's too much suspense. So I enjoyed the like 2 lines of relief in there. And then where she gets to whispered a prayer. It was like the word had lost its balance for a moment. Dark clouds appeared. So what you're talking about, the visions, Jamie, I wrote, I like where this is going because, you're really, cool. That was really cool. And then when just below that, where she's, after she just cut the bridge down, I was like, she cannot change her mind. She is committed now. And like, literally, I almost, if that makes sense, gasped because I was like, wow, she's in it now. And, but anyway, for something that is not edited, I thought it was great.
All right. So when I
That's
first,
it.
okay, when I first read the little note that Tina put at the top of there, I was, I said, oh, okay. So I started reading it. And then as I'm taking the notes and writing down my comments, every time I wrote something down, I was like, but she's just going to say, well, I'll get that in editing. So I got frustrated is probably a strong word, but when I feel like my time that I'm putting into this isn't going to really matter because everything that I was writing down, she could just say, well, I'll get that in editing. Then I feel like that I've kind of wasted my time. And that's really hard for me to say because I don't mean that to be an insult. I'm just telling you how I feel as a critiquer. And I think that I need to be honest because there are other people that are watching this that they need to know that that some people might feel this way if you present things that aren't edited. But like, for example, like I feel like that she needs to work on the way that her characters talk because I don't think that characters talk that way. Like they wouldn't say things like what is it you think you need to do? It's dangerous out here. You are in way over your head. I feel like in the moment he'd be like, what are you thinking? Like, period. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like there are things like that. And then your grandpa's an
Well,
old man with an
if you
addled
don't,
mind. If you don't stop talking this way, I'm afraid for what may happen to you. I'm afraid you might share his fate. Like, I think that they're friends, and I feel like that the conversation's very stilted. But as I say this, those are things that she could catch in editing. And so, like, I feel like I'm wasting my breath sharing some of the stuff. Go ahead.
no, I think you should share them because I think it opens up an opportunity to dialogue. Like, for example, I think that I read them as intentional words because I read these people as sort of tribal. And if I were trying to write a sort of tribal dialect that was either futuristic or from the past, I would write in sort of formalized. So, like, especially in a moment of like confrontation, you are going to speak in sort of a ceremonial way. Why are you disgracing your ancestors? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, so I kind of read it as a device. I didn't read the dialogue as stilted. So I
Okay.
think that you're bringing up these points is worthy because it's a choice then for the author to make when she does go back and revisit the piece. Because yes, she says, I kind of don't want the critique. I think she kind of would want to hear that feedback because then when she does go to polish the piece, she will have to make a choice to either make the dialogue more natural to the modern ear or to make sure that it's consistently tribal and fitting throughout the rest of the piece. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think you should go ahead and share.
I don't know if any of you watch any of those Alaskan shows with the Inuit on it. There's only 70,000 shows set in Alaska right now, the reality shows. And, and if you listen to the natives, the Inuit, then they do have a very specific way of speaking. And it is kind of stilted, it feels like, but that's just their accent. It's like they choose their words intentionally and there's a space between every word. I have no spaces between my words and people can't understand me half the time. So, so I think maybe that's part of it as well.
Right. Okay. And I felt like I like that she brought the demonic part into there. That was something that she had talked about before, and I like that she did it. But I think that she needs to tread lightly with that too. Like when she talked about how Angelica had always been able to um, she had dreams and then those things would come true, and those things were like trivial. I almost feel like that's like kind of like it might be interpreted as psychic and you might lose some readers that way. When I read that part, I thought, I don't think God works that way. Like, I do believe God gives visions, but I don't think he's going to give visions about oatmeal or whatever it was that she read in there. So I think she needs to maybe revisit that and really pray about whether or not that's a thing that she wants to include in there. And, like, how did she know that that rock was called Eagle Rock if she's never been this far in? Right? That's where we're at in the story, is
That's a
that
good question.
like she's not been there before, and they act like nobody's been there. So I found that kind of strange. Um, and when Petra showed up, I was like, "Yay, Petra!" But like it was just like all of a sudden he was there, and there was no stopping in the story and inside of her head or talking about it. Like all of a sudden he's just there, and then it starts into the conversation. So I kind of felt like I would have liked her to stop a little bit and let's see inside of Angelica to see how does that affect her. That all of a sudden she's caught, or all of a sudden like this cute guy is it, whatever she wants us to see in that scene between the two of them. Whenever Petra and she encounter each other, I feel like there needs to be like something that we get from that, and I felt like that if she needs to maybe stop there a minute and give us something. So
I think about the rock. It's in the journal, and it's supposed to look like an eagle head. It's described looking like an eagle's head.
oh, okay. So maybe if we weren't reading these weeks apart, I would have kept that in my head and knowledge and known that. So that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. It would be very nice to see some reaction internally about Petra. And particularly, I do not know how far we are in here. And I don't know how much I have not read. But if she's constantly already having thoughts about Petra, it might be that we would already know what his appearance would mean just because she was just thinking about it 5 minutes ago. However, to your point, Jen, yes, that would be good. So there stood Petra, and Angelica felt X, Y, and Z internally.
Right. Maybe
I
she,
do agree that I would appreciate that.
yeah, maybe she could even start looking at the bridge in her spear and start like really like that could be an internal struggle inside of her because to cut herself off from Petra, and then when she sees Donovan, the decision's made. Boom. You know, like then I feel like that would be more of a building up and like bring me inside of it more emotionally, you know? Because we know we've read the other parts and stuff like we already hate Donovan, but we need to be inside of her and see what's going on internally, I feel like. But so give me like I don't know. I love the scene though, and I feel like my other bread is I really feel like this is a much more plausible reason for why he can't get across the ravine to her. Like I love that there was a bridge and she destroyed it, and that they had to build a new one basically or fell a tree or whatever, so that gives her more time to get away. So that was great. I love that part.
I would really like to see the scene where Angelica has made up her mind that this is what she has to do. Like her just as a reader. So maybe she's going to keep it from me so that I'll read her book. But I really want to know at what point and what it is that makes her finally say, yes, I must go and fulfill this quest, kind of a thing. That'll be very exciting for me to read because seems like she has had a growth and a commitment to this quest, and I'm really, really eager to see how she manipulates that with words.
One more thing too, the tree felling scene. I felt like it was a lot of telling and not showing, probably because she needs to explain what's happening and why it's taking so long. I totally get that. But this I feel like is a missed opportunity to get us inside of Petra's head. We want to be in love with Petra. We want to be like on his side and see his character arc going from being on the side of the priest to being fully on the side of Angelica and finding Jesus. So I feel like that is a missed opportunity for us to see. Like she hints at that Donovan goes crazy and he talks him off the cliff or whatever, literally, talks him down. But like get us more inside of his head of what he's thinking, what he thought when he saw her, like how he feels now that she's lost again, and you know the internal struggle he's had between his brother and this girl, and I don't know, like I think like that was would be a good spot for that because it was so short too. So
It would be really good if instead of Petra convinced him, how about that conversation? How
Yeah.
about so finally Donovan calmed down to listen to reason. Blah, 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 Petra said. Blah, 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 replied Donovan. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Like,
then, so like,
show
have the
Donovan being
conversation.
crazy.
Yes, and
and then
show Petra's ability to manipulate him or to appease him or whatever he did to make that work, right?
yeah.
It's hard, but it will make us appreciate Petra. And then also you can sneak in certain kinds of thoughts about Angelica, right? I mean,
Right.
you can tell us about what he's thinking if you do that.
And show
So,
his character arc a bit too, because if like he's talking to his brother and his brother is being crazy and you're inside Petra's head and you start to see him start to realize like this isn't how it's supposed to be, or however she wants to do that, that will help with his character arc too. Instead of all of a sudden, oh, you're right, Angelica, I'm on your side. Like you got to start giving us little tidbits, and this would have been a great spot, I felt.
all right. So are we ready to let her out? All right, come out, wherever you are, Tina Bambino.
Okay, thanks, guys. Great feedback. I don't know where to start.
Well, how do you feel about the argument that I said that Jen should share her critiques, even though this is a rough? Like, are you happy that she shared what she was thinking?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I didn't feel like that was like editing stuff. That is more, the story, because I'm trying really hard to get the vernacular correct.
So it's important for you to hear that Jen felt that that was odd dialogue.
Yeah, I think that is important. Maybe I need to go further.
Go maybe more over the top with how they talk, so we realize that
so that it's more obvious that it is native vernacular, so it doesn't sound so. I feel like maybe it's too modern, and that's why you feel like it's not modern. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
So in my mind, I'm picturing like if there's some kind of a posture that people adopt when they're about to like make a proclamation or something, right? And so like if Petra were to, spread his feet and cross his arms or some kind of a thing to where it's like, I am about to say something meaningful and you should listen to me. I don't know. But do you know what I mean? I'm getting that kind of a vibe from what you're saying. Like he's about to make a ceremonial decree or some stuff.
Yeah.
What if, Tina, do you think it's possible that you could do some research on the Alaska Native language and have sometimes like when Petra comes in face to face with her, you would write it in that language, like stop or what do you think you're doing? And then you repeat it, and I don't know, like just to really make us realize that they speak a different language, and it's going to be what we hear from them is going to be different. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of research into the language. It's just really hard to find. You can't just go to Google Translate and type it in, and it's really hard to actually find. It's a very specific language. So the Athabascan Indians are actually a very big tribe. But I found this woman on Twitter called the Athabascan Woman, and I actually sent her a message and I said, I'm writing this book and this is where it's set. And I was wondering what the word for grandma was because I can't find it anywhere. And she says, oh no, we're this kind of Athabascan. And they're Dena'ina Athabascan, and that's a completely different language.
So I have a question for you. Is it super important that these people speak a language that actually exists? Because can't you just like take the flavor of that type of a language and like make up your own words? I mean, if you have it with a similar rhythm, like if I was going to sit down and pretend to be writing Russian, I would, put a certain amount of this or that kind of inflection in there to make it look like fake Russian. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then you wouldn't have to be accurate. I mean, it's your world. It's your people living in a time that does not even exist. So things could have become mutilated over the centuries and they could speak a certain kind of a way as long as you have the sort of rhythms right?
Right.
Yeah, I just typed in Alaskan, Native Alaskan or Athabascan, whatever, Native Alaskan phrases, And I found a couple websites that just give you a whole bunch of them for you to learn some of the phrases to talk with them, like yes and no and thanks. Even if you're just putting those words in, would help to make
Right.
it feel more like they are tribal, which would probably help me as a reader at least. So
Right.
Yeah, I mean, even if every time they said yes, it was the Athabascan word or some variation on it. So if the
yeah,
word is, like German would be Danke, like I might have my people say Dank. If they were like German people 2,000 years from now, they might not
Right.
say Danke with an E on the end. They might say Dank, right? Because the language evolved or something. So you just have to get a pattern established with it, right?
Right. Yeah,
So
so that's
sorry.
good to know that you didn't pick up on that they're kind of very formal. They pronounce all their words. They don't generally use contraction. So that was kind of where I was trying to go with it
gotcha.
for that. There are scenes that you guys haven't read. I have scenes in between my Angelica scenes with Donovan and Petra as they're chasing her. And so I think that that's going to help with the character arc of Petra. I also I have him, in one scene in particular, I have him sending them, him and the tracker are friends, and they send Donovan and the rest of the guys in the wrong direction. At one point, so that they don't find her as fast. So there's like things like that going on throughout the book. And when I did write that, I know it's very short. I do plan on going back and fleshing that out. My mind was on the getting Angelica down the cliff, the demons, the visions of the demons, and like focusing on that. But I knew I wanted to have a scene in between there and placeholder. But it's good to hear what it is you guys would like to hear.
Yeah.
In that scene. So when I go back and flesh it out, I have a good idea. And
Yeah. And so here's the thing. I feel I could be wrong, but you're thinking that a potential romantic element between Angelica and Petra is supposed to be like simmering away here.
But I don't want it to be as strong as like what it would be in one of Jen's romances.
For sure. And I
almost
totally,
like it's subtle, like even they don't even realize it.
yes, but you do have to write with that simmering on the background. So you can't be so careful about it that it feel okay, because if you're too careful about it, it feels like you're doing a bad job and not being careful. So do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
It would be better to err on the side of giving people too much of that ooey gooey mush than to not give any, because you don't want it to be a romance, right? Like, because people really like a romance. People want to root for the main character and the other character to get together, even if the story itself isn't a romance. So when you are writing those scenes, try not to rein it in to the degree where, well, he's friend zoned, or the author obviously is really bad at writing romantic scenes because she didn't even blah blah blah. You see what I mean? So your caution might not serve you well.
As a writer of ooey gooey mush, you have to make us feel like when you finally do have them like do something romantic, whether it's a kiss or their hands touch and electric, whatever, it has to be plausible. So you have to give us enough where we start to see it, even if they don't. So I get what you're saying, that you don't want them to realize it, but we need to realize it. And right now we're not realizing it, at least what we've read so far. So
Right.
okay.
Did you guys read the scene where he let the animal go?
I don't
Did you
think
guys
so.
read that? Okay.
I think we did. I think it was a scene where and she's kind of arguing with him. It's the beginning of her trying to explain to him where she's coming from. Like, all of this is too strict and blah blah blah. And then you have him kind of do that, the release of the animal. I can't remember. I think I did read it, but I can't remember. Does it end with him just letting the animal go?
No, there's a scene where her grandfather's been arrested, and she is gonna try to go and get a message to her grandfather. Or no, she's gonna go to her father and she's gonna convince him to let her grandpa go because he didn't do anything wrong. So, but she hears Donovan and her father talking from around a corner, and her father's telling Donovan to go search Angelica's room.
Right.
And if you don't find it in her room, then you go get her and you bring her here. And so she realizes she can't go to her father. So she's sneaking back around the other side to get away. And she sees Petra out in the pens where they keep the animals for the sacrifices. And he's trying to get this baby moose calf to eat, and it's just bawling. And then he hears the mom in the woods, and he takes the calf out and lets the calf go to its mom.
The only scene I remember about the grandpa is he's sick, like he's in bed. Like I didn't even know he got arrested.
Yeah,
so.
he's being held in the temple until they can have him before the High Council. And so she needs to bring the other half of the Bible back to prove that he's not a heretic in order to save his life. And so, that defining scene that you guys are talking about is part of that, where she realizes, okay, now she's in trouble because they know about the journal and they're looking for it. And if it's found on her, which it is on her, then she's in trouble too. And her grandpa's in trouble. And the only way to get him out of trouble is to prove he's telling the truth. And so then Petra comes back from the woods, and then he has a conversation with Angelica.
That's the conversation, because she's like, well, what about you doing blah, blah, blah with the moose? So I do sort of vaguely remember reading it. So you were saying, did I read it? So then what is your question about the scene?
Well, there's just, at the end of that conversation, it's the start of that hinting around that there's something more between them.
What does she say?
I don't remember exactly, but it's more of her thoughts. It's more of her
thoughts. Because I kind of remember it being like her calling him like a hypocrite, and what happened to the boy that I knew from before who blah blah blah, right? And he's like, well, we've all grown up now.
No, that's an earlier scene.
Okay, that's
so
what I
haven't seen this at all then. So the scene you're talking
about. That's a
scene
scene behind her grandpa's cabin, right when he's getting arrested.
Okay.
And he's telling her she needs to grow up.
So we haven't seen that.
So then this is another scene where she sees letting the calf go away, and then she says to him, what happened to we need to grow up? And she's kind of grinning at him and teasing him because she just realized like the earlier scene, he'd say, well, he grew up. You know, where's the boy who used to let the animals go? And he says, well, he grew up. And then she catches him letting the animal go is a later scene.
Got it.
So I think part of the problem is I'm just taking things out of, like, you're not getting everything.
Right, I agreed.
So there's some development there that you guys haven't seen.
How do you feel about Jen's advice, though, about a reaction from Angelica when she sees Petra?
Yeah, I agree.
What about?
I think we need more of her thought process too about why. I realized like she suddenly decides she's going to cut the bridge, but I think right before that we need some. Because in my mind she's got this hope that Petra's going to join her because she makes that comment. Mm-hmm. Why don't you come with me? And then he starts to step out onto the bridge.
And you wonder if he's chasing her or coming after her. That's what I'm talking about. That kind of stuff is we need to see him taking that step and then somehow hinting at why is he doing it? Is he coming? Is he coming to join me or coming after me? Whatever. And then he can't go. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Yeah, would be stuff.
I think you could take Jennifer's stream of consciousness from the example and see if you can't rework something similar going on through Angelica's mind as she grabs the spear and is having this conflict. Even as she's moving to cut the bridge, she's thinking all of these thoughts, right? Because it also adds to the catch your breathness of the motion of cutting the bridge. If I cut the bridge, I can't go back. But if I cut the bridge, then Petra can't join me, but I have to cut the bridge. Like, I mean, just kind of a mental swirl could be added in there.
She's cutting off Donovan, but at the same time, she's cutting off Petra. Like, there's got to be some internal something going on there. Yeah.
And like part of me was thinking that as I was writing it, but like I was already like 3 paragraphs ahead because I was writing by hand. So like in my brain, I'm like already got her down by the riverbank as I'm writing.
So this is exactly the kind of thing you want to know, right? Like, so I
Yes.
spit out this stream of consciousness. Now, when I go back to edit it, what do I need to do to fix it? Is that kind of fair to
Yes.
say?
Yeah. And what kind of things am I missing that would make it a better read? Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. Great.
Right.
What else? Did you have questions or anything to clarify?
The just that the Eagle Rock was in the journal, like that's what they called it in the journal.
Yeah, Rhonda remembered. She's a careful reader. I
I'm
am
pretty
not
sure
a
I
careful
said
reader.
that she was going over the
It
journal
was,
in her
but I'll
mind.
take credit for that.
Like I'm pretty sure I said that right in that scene, that
Yeah.
she was going over the journal in her mind and where she needed to go next, because she's about to lose the journal, so that's the reason for that.
Oh no!
Oh.
Yeah. It's because the next scene, a bear grabs her by the backpack and is dragging her along the river, and she has to let go of her pack in order to save herself.
Wow.
And the bear tears up her pack because apparently she hasn't, wrapped her food well enough or something, and
Wow.
That seems awfully symbolic.
all of her stuff ends up in the river, floats away. So now she's traveling without the journal to guide her. So I had to have that little bit in there so that we see that she's been reading the journal and committing it to memory. So that's going to help her a little bit.
I don't know if it's necessary for you to write in there, like mention that, like just like she read in the journal, the eagle's face looks just like she imagined from reading it in the journal. Maybe it's not necessary because I haven't read it, like read. I feel like there's been like a week or so, like in between there. But it's something to look at. Maybe if it sounded natural, you could do that for like how Jamie had pointed out. Like there's not everybody is like a deep reader or like a looking at the specifics. They just read fast. So just an idea. All right. Anything else, Tina?
No, not that if I did, I forgot already. So
All right. Awesome.
thanks, guys.
Well, I hope that this was informative for our viewers. If you like being a part of our postcast, tell a friend to join you and us for our next one.
Yeah, and tell us. Give us some feedback. What you like, what you don't like.
Yeah, if you have ideas for us, we're very open to suggestions. And yeah, I don't know what else there is to say. We're all so quiet all of a sudden.
Said it all.
Merry Christmas.
Oh.
Merry Christmas, Jen.
Merry Christmas, Jen.
Let me get through Halloween first.
I know, it's so weird. It's something like 104 heat index here. It's very weird about Christmas.
Oh.
Yeah, very interesting. Life is changing pretty quickly.
Agreed. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to this week's Postcast. Join us next week, not only for the Postcast, but catch us before that with our podcast that comes out every Thursday morning. Until then.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.